Hello, everybody, and welcome into the newest episode of All Things NBA from A to Z. I'm Chris Persiine, and here alongside Zach Noble, and our show presented by Ball is Life is back today to talk to you about the NBA's Eastern Conference. Our goal today is to raise one burning question for every team in the Eastern Conference in the National Basketball Association. Zach, before we get into that and dive in for the rest of the episode, how you doing? How in-season tournament's over? What'd you make of it? How's it going?
Oh, the in-season tournament. So I'm doing well. I'm doing very good. Sales are rolling, getting to the end of the year, cramming. But with this in-season tournament, I'll just give a quick reflection. I wish the final was a lot. Oh, what was happening there? I wish the final was a lot better than it was. I mean, LeBron just made the Pacers look like they weren't even a play-in team, let alone a real contender that was trying to make this in-season tournament look magical as they did for most of the tournament, which was quite disappointing. Halliburton kind of went AWOL there, but I mean, hey, he's young. It's his first
Yep.
really hardcore intensity playoff like atmosphere.
Being at the
Um,
top of the scouting report too,
yeah,
so I get it.
competition and getting full-fledged, full force, age 39-year-old LeBron, whatever that is, which to me kind of looks like 35-year-old LeBron, 34-year-old.
2018,
Yeah,
2017. Yep.
it's very reminiscent of that. And AD, man, he looked almost, I mean, he's peaking as well there in that game. So I don't blame the Pacers. They played hard. They tried, but um, kudos to the Lakers and LeBron just saying we still got it in us for at least a game or a couple of games that are spread out pretty well. Let's see if they can transfer this to the rest of the year. But I'm all for hanging the banner. I don't care if it's the Lakers or not. I mean, I love how they celebrated, as they should. I mean, we made a big deal out of this tournament all up and two, and I'm not going to be one of those people that bitches and moans about it. I'm going to celebrate it and be happy we got to experience LeBron's greatness one more time.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey man, I had a lot of fun with the in-season tournament. I enjoyed it a great deal. And I thought overall it was worth it for year one, and it's something that the league can continue to build and grow on going forward. So as we finish talking about a little success there, let's go to the land of failure right now, the bottom
Oh,
of the standings. Let's take a little let's
the
juxtapose.
nosedive.
Let's juxtapose. Um, so yeah, listen, we're gonna go bottom to top, Eastern Conference standings, asking one burning question. And Zach, I'm gonna decide the order for us right here because these Detroit Pistons are up first, right? They're sitting at 2-21, have won 8.7% of their games this season. Uh, that's not great. Also, they're on a nice little streak, a 20-game streak of losing. My burning question for the Detroit Pistons: how much longer will Troy Weaver have his job for? Now, you know they're not going to fire Monty Williams after giving him that gigantic deal. But I told you in the offseason that the way Weaver built this roster, this was going to be the worst team in the Eastern Conference. I said they'd be worse than Washington and that they'd be the worst team in the East. Here we are, man. So how much longer does Troy Weaver get?
Yeah, you haven't been wrong about any of it. Kudos to you. I mean, it's as ugly as it looked, and I was all on board. It was an ugly construction. I just thought the talent was much better than it is. But mind you, I mean, a lot of these guys aren't playing the roles I'd expect them to. Jaden Ivey's only averaging 23 minutes a game. I was hoping to be around 34, and Boyan being out quite some time. Um, the 20-game losing streak means they started 2-1 by everybody's um, intelligence level here. You can never judge a season based on a 3-game sample size or a 5-game, and we do this way too often. And this is a perfect example. Anything can happen, especially in the first 50 games or what have you. But I don't even know where to begin other than deciding if Jaden Ivey's like a real piece, because I still think he has shown signs enough for a team to take a flyer on him to give him a lot of minutes, and be all in on this guy. Not like all in like a franchise cornerstone, but all in to give him real minutes and a real opportunity versus sprinkle him in where you see he can maybe make an impact on a winning level, which why would you try to win when you're 2-21? Let's try to find some ways to get these players better versus the team better. When you're this bad, you got to be focusing on individuals and not the overall big picture. Boyan, I mean, he's not a veteran leader. Maybe he is if the team's a little bit better, but I've never thought he's a vocal leader. Go get a first round pick for him, Go get whatever you can for the guy because he's got value. I mean, the 76ers would love to have him. Well, many teams would love to have him. Where would you start with this team? I don't even know. Like the bigs, I mean, Bagley and Wiseman. See, can you
Yeah,
get anything back for them? I don't think.
move both. Like try to get to move both. Try to get someone that you know you plays your kind of ball. Like is that I just don't know what is going on here. I think Sasser, Hayes, Cunningham, Thompson, all can stay, all good players. Bogdanovich being the veteran is weird. I would sell high at the deadline. You're already so terrible. It's just tough because man, do you love having any semblance of structure? They do play Burke some. They play Bogdanovich a good amount. So Cunningham is good. You need to get another high lottery pick and hope they hit. You missed on Hayes and Ivy thus far, and that's why you're
I
at where
don't
you're
think you
at.
missed on Ivy yet. I'm not ready to say that,
Well, they're not. Yeah, me neither. Me neither. But
Okay.
I said thus far because he's not
They
out
think
there.
they're acting like they
Exactly.
missed. Yeah.
He's not out there providing value next to Cunningham as a starter. So that's you go out and you draft someone in this draft who you just think fits. Just get a good player.
Like Joe Harris, man. Like, why are you wasting him when you can probably get a couple seconds back for him or something? He's got to be worth something, right? Or is his contract too much to not be worth anything? Uh,
Yeah, I don't even know, man.
I think the key is just to figure out who is on your team right now going forward. And to me, that what I see them like buying into as a franchise would be Cade, maybe Marcus Sasser, for sure Osar, and Jalen Duren. Those four guys are about it.
Yeah, I didn't
Everybody
even
else,
bring up Duran. I love him. He's great.
yeah. So we both agree on those four guys. Like that's your core. Get rid of everybody else and
I like
try to
Hayes. I like Hayes.
really. Because I've been a big Hayes. All right, so we agree on five. But do you agree Killian Hayes is a guy this team likes? I don't. I'm not.
He can come off the bench in the next iteration of the team.
All right, we'll keep him too. So
Good
those
good teams have guys like Killian coming off the bench playing that kind of role. They have higher caliber players that are able to do more things, but archetype wise, that's the kind of role that high caliber teams have role players playing.
What about Isaiah Stewart? You think he fits with those guys?
I like him off the bench in an
Okay,
iteration of this team. And that's better. But I don't like him as a four between Cunningham, Thompson, and Durant. So
100%. Yeah, that's it. Those six players right there. Get everybody else off this team and find pieces that fit though around those guys and their subsequential roles.
shooters.
Well, that's what Joe Harris, Boyan Bogdanovich, but it's just like Boyan's been out. Joe Harris, I mean, they haven't really done anything with him. Um, but yeah, they need more shooters that they actually like and that are going to play and fit because they didn't integrate Boyan back. They
Yeah.
just threw him in there.
Facts, just threw him out there. All right. Well, Zach, next up, the Washington Wizards, 3-19, winning 13.6% of their basketball games. Uh, a little better than the Pistons because they got one more win and two fewer losses, but still not hot. What's your burning question for Washington?
It was so hard for me to come up with a question for these two teams. I mean, Washington, without being too redundant here, I mean, like, who would they even hang on to would probably be the burning question of these players, because they hoped like Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma would get a little better and be guys that could lead to a few more wins and other guys would develop. I didn't like Koulibaly coming in. I wasn't high on him at all. Denny hasn't taken a jump. To me, it's figuring out a way to get any first round picks, and wherever that you can get that, like whether it's one or half of one or any sort of protections, just getting in the first round for next year's draft as many times as possible, and you can dismantle this whole entire thing, even if it means getting, that's what it takes to get one first round pick. You know, you just got to get a first round pick to get into the draft. So my question, I mean, make this more straightforward to you. How do you get a first round pick out of this team, or how many can you get?
Oh, man.
Yeah. Who's worth anything?
Yeah.
Or that's the thing with the Pistons, got things that are worth something, I think.
Well, the Pistons actually, their second round pick is going to be super valuable this season, and the Knicks have it. So, the Knicks are going to have that pick. Can you get a team to give you 2 top 40 picks for a Kuzma, and you call that worth it? You know, like the 28th and the
Top
38th pick,
40.
28th and 38th pick in the
I
draft.
want one top 30.
I wouldn't call that worth it in this year's draft because it's a role player draft. Um, but the 14th pick and the 25th pick, I would do that for Kyle Kuzma if I were Washington, if I could get 14 and 25. Again, just spitballing like values here, not exact teams that have those picks.
Like Kuzma's contract isn't bad. Jordan Poole's, I think, is pretty bad. Um, they're
I
both
would give
not
up
great.
2 seconds for Jordan Poole if I were a couple of teams out there looking to buy low, but that's not the value you're looking to send him out on if you're Washington. So
Yeah, you
they
need a
probably
first
have to
round
keep
pick,
him right now.
you
Yep.
know? Like, anyway, like I'm literally would give up the entire, but nobody's gonna, they don't have the roster space to take on the entire team for one first round pick. And it's like you're looking at contracts to match in their value. And Denny, I mean, you might be able to get a late, really highly protected first rounder, but that's pushing it, right? Um, they're hanging on to Koulibaly. They're gonna, at least for another year or two, just to see if they have anything there.
Yeah. They
Kispert
should
is
have to.
not a guy that has a ton of upside, so he should be worth a top 20 pick, right? I think so. I'd give up a
I
top 20
vote to
pick.
keep and extend Kispert.
Problem is, then he just turns into Joe Harris. I mean, he's the
That's
type of
fine.
guy.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's a good
you need
player.
him. You're right. You're
And you
right.
keep that guy around.
But you just gotta like. That's what I'm saying. They need just to upside plays because they missed on Johnny Davis. Like
Yeah,
that
that
was their
stinks. What did they
highest
do to his
pick.
shot, man? What did they do to his shot? That thing looks terrible now. Poor guy.
There's no upside on this team whatsoever. I feel terrible for their their fans. Uh, like you saw, you basically gave the Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole experience a chance, and they're not getting any better. It's not happening. They're not winning
Yeah.
players. He's shooting 40% on twos and 29 from threes. I mean, he's worse efficiency than low end Russell Westbrook, and he's taken a lot of attempts.
Yeah.
Denny's, I mean, not a bad player. He's not a bad player, but like who needs him, you know, and who thinks he can get any better to give up a good first round pick for him?
No,
Don't
no one's giving up a good first round pick for Denny. I would give up
really shooting
two.
52 from the field, 35 from three.
A team like
What about
should a
Memphis?
team like I was just gonna say a team like Orlando be interested?
Orlando's got guys they're not playing, you know, and Denny fits the size mold. That would be
So
it.
that's something. What about
Yeah.
Toronto?
Toronto's a team I like for him. I mean, they got to get rid of Siakam and OG, and they got minutes for young guys. Denny, I think, could go decent with Scotty, especially the way Scotty's shooting. So there's two teams. What about Chicago? But then you got to
Ugh.
take back.
Yeah,
Then
that's a Denny team.
I think that's a place you dump Jordan Poole or Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, who knows? So we'll see. We'll see. But let's keep it moving up the standings. We're gonna go up to the 13th seed at 7-14, winning 33.3% of their games. So a big increase from the team below that just had 3 wins and 2 wins. 7-14, the Charlotte Hornets right now, Zach. And the burning question, it's the fork in the road. Is LaMelo good enough where you get more help? Do you want to upgrade this team, or do you want to tear it down a little for the rest of the season to best position yourself to draft another impact player? You have LaMelo, you have Miller. You know, what do you do with a Washington, with a Rozier?
LaMelo Ball's out to about December 23rd is what the injury report's saying. So then about
We're
another
we're
week.
coming out 2 weeks. We're coming up on that. Week to 2 weeks. We're coming up on that, man.
Yeah, so this team's got to win a couple of games to even stay in the play-in picture, or else they're out of it. I mean, I'd say they're basically out of it now, but um, my thing is LaMelo was playing good enough. The team was in the race with him trending upwards, with Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges back looking pretty good. Um, they have like their ceiling with the guys on the roster right now. I think if everybody got to their peak is like a second round team. I really believe that. But are they going to get there without going to prison or jail or being injured or that's tough to tell. So they might need like a character adjustment to get there. Uh, but my thing is Brandon Miller's so damn good. That's my biggest takeaway on the Charlotte Hornets. Nobody's talking about him because they're on a 7-14 team and it's in bumfuck Charlotte right now. Um, bless his soul. I mean, he's just out there doing his job. But what do you think of Miles Bridges? You think he's gonna get back to his peak form? Just playing wise, I mean, I don't think he looks bad.
I don't know about that. I mean, I don't. Do I even? You know, whatever. Whether I care or not is one thing, but because the guy just shouldn't be in the league. But like
Right, but we gotta
where
talk
we're
about him.
at, yeah, where we're at on the court, it's like where you look at the efficiency is where I'm impressed with him. And the reason I say that, you know, against teams like the Wizards and the Nets, he goes 11 for 18, 9 for 15 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3 against Washington, 3 for 4 from 3 against Brooklyn. You look at a game against a team like Toronto, Julius Randle loves to bully up on them. He had 22 points on 8 for 15 shooting, 3 for 6 from 3 point. So not getting to the free throw line a whole lot. He hasn't taken more than 7 free throws in a game, maybe all season. But he took 8. Nope, he didn't. That was a lie. So yeah, I don't know where the free throws. I don't think it's a lot. If I could get the exact number right now, I would love to give it to you because I think. Okay, so game, if you go to the game log, like the game by game, yada yada, he's shooting 2.3 free throws a game in December, 4.6 a game in November, 3.7 a game on the season. He's shot 10 free throws in one game, and that's it. Never above 7 another time or at 7 another time. So not someone who with a high free throw rate, again, spending a lot of time on this, but I think that's low hanging fruit for him as an area of improvement, just being more physical, getting to the free throw line a little more. Because the efficiency is really great from everywhere else on the floor. He's doing his job of scoring, kind of like in a Keldon Johnson plus role for this team.
I think he needs LaMelo to get better. I mean, he's a complimentary player, in my opinion. He's not a guy that's gonna raise your floor. He's gonna raise your ceiling. Um, he's been really good. And I don't like talking about him in that light, but we're gonna talk about him from a basketball sense, you know. And you got to hang on to him because you chose to bring him back, and now he's performing, and very few teams are going to want him for who he is. So For me, I think you'd sell high on PJ Washington, maybe look Gordon Hayward, unless Gordon Hayward's really an inner leader that I don't know about. But who cares about the inner leader if you're 7-14? I think Terry Rozier is enough for that, and I think he's just an awesome guy to have in your team as a just a microwave scorer, whether it's your seventh man or your fifth man. He can play the two if the other three guys, 3 through 5, are good on defense. He could fit next to LaMelo, I think. And you got enough scoring punch and defense. So to me, those would be the two guys I'd be looking out for. I'm not ready to. I wouldn't ever get rid of LaMelo until he shows he's truly not a winning player or he just doesn't want to be there. But Brand Miller, I want to tell you, he's stacking up like, you know how people talk so highly about Keegan Murray last year. I like Brand Miller much better than him. There's like, I don't know, like RJ Barrett type talk. Like I like him to have a higher ceiling than RJ from early on. I was so high on RJ and I still am pretty high on RJ, but like Brandon Miller is a two-way guy, super efficient already, just really intelligent. I mean, he could be on a team like this, he could be forcing stuff. But he's playing within the system, and I think he's a winning player already.
Yeah, man. I mean, Miller's doing a good job out there of doing his job, and I had him, I think, sixth on my final big board or seventh on my final big board. I like some of the athletic upside shots a little bit more than him in this past class if I were drafting that high. But with someone as good as LaMelo, maybe you did want a higher floor, lower ceiling kind of player in Brandon Miller. I comped him always to more of the Cam Johnson style of wing than the Tatum, like super high upside number one option style of wing. But I never thought that was a bad thing. I always thought he was going to be a really good player in the NBA. I just always struggled to see him doing it as the number one option on his team and playing next to LaMelo Ball. He hasn't had to do that, so that's good. And that's something that he's shown that he can excel in, a situation he's shown he can excel in. And he's the kind of talent that a lot of young teams would love to have right now, just as one of the many pieces of their core that they're building together. So we'll see what Charlotte wants to do, if they want to add to this core or tear down from it. I agree with you. Washington and Hayward guys, and Rozier even too. Two of those three guys, you look to move them. I think you're in a better spot. They got a lot of young guards they've drafted that they could be playing. McGowan, Smith Jr. I think Nick Smith Jr. is really worth a shot. So yeah,
Only if you can get value for Rozier. I don't want to just dump him, That's my thoughts on him.
I wouldn't just dump him, but I also wouldn't be afraid to move off him and
Try those other guys out.
yeah,
All right.
just for the rest of this season. But moving up in the standings with a 37.5 winning percentage at 9-15, and in the 12th seed are the Chicago Bulls. Zach, your burning question.
Yeah, so this report just came out, and this is so Chicago Bulls-esque. I'm buying it. My burning question is, do you buy the Bulls are looking for win now players on the trade market per Mike Scotto? They're looking for players that can help them win now and maybe a pick down the line if they can add to their current cup board. What's your take, Chris?
I could
Are they
buy
really that stupid?
I could buy that they would want to move Levine for win now talent, instead of just stockpiling young guys. I could buy if they want to move a Patrick Williams, that maybe they'd want to do it for someone good now. Um, but I don't think that's their number one goal. I don't think their number one goal is to add to this core. I think they know they need to tear it down a little bit. But I also do think that this could be them trying to get the message out there. Hey, if we're going to be trading Zach LaVine, we don't just want your poo-poo platter of picks. We want a serious, legit offer. And if it's not going to be win now talent, then it better be something worth it. So this could be positioning for a LaVine trade down the line. I totally, totally would believe it.
So I'm a big Zach LaVine guy, as you know. I'm always on the party that teams are not better without their stars, no matter what their record says. Um, but this is the rare case. I just don't think DeRozan, Caruso, LaVine fit together. It takes away from Caruso. It takes away from LaVine a little bit. I don't think it takes too much away from DeMar, but definitely does a little bit, even though DeMar doesn't need to be anything crazy because he's not getting paid a ton either. Um, I think LaVine's definitely worth more than DeRozan, so I think he's the move you got to make. So in order to get win now pieces, you can. I mean, obviously, there's ways you can go to get win now pieces with LaVine, I think, but there's also ways you can just rebuild with getting rid of LaVine. You know, I would get rid of LaVine and Williams, just like you said. It would have to be the only win now piece I think that would even make remotely sense that's available is Pascal Siakam, and he's the most upside player. It's just like you got DeMar DeRozan, Pascal Siakam, Caruso, and Vucevic. There's your team. First round, second round. Come on, Chicago. Let's blow this bitch up before it gets too far underwater and you have nowhere to go. Like I'm sick of talking about who else these guys can bring in versus how do we get back to zero and build. Like the they're in a similar position to Washington, except they have players that are actually good and can win at a lot higher level than Poole and Kuzma,
Yeah.
uh, DeRozan, Vooch, and it's just a little tier above those guys. It's from the bottom of the barrel to the middle of the pack. And then there's this whole gap above them that they're trying to chase with a win now piece by getting something in the middle between DeRozan and Jokic. You know, it's like, come on.
Yeah. Completely understood. I think I'd keep Vucevic around, like the deal was decent, I thought.
Oh,
Um
great deal on Vooch.
yeah, yeah. So I thought the deal was decent. Keep that around. Just move Levine before the deadline. Just do it. Send him to a Charlotte if they want him. Memphis, they interested? Would that be a buy low for them? Go ahead. Honestly, just do it. Just get it over with. I think it would be an era to move on from by this point.
Thing is, Kobe White's been very good, and I think
Yeah, move Levine, get him the ball more then if that's what like I can't.
there's not a huge gap on this team. On this team, on other teams, Levine's a huge gap. I do believe that, but like on this team, you're not getting much different. They went 4-1 by Levine being out, and the team looked like they knew how to play together, and we're a pretty dang good team in that stretch. It's just I don't think they have the goods, no matter how many games they won in the regular season with that roster, to do anything in the playoffs.
Yeah. All right. Well, fair. Um, we'll revisit Chicago several times throughout the course of the season. Let's go up one in the standings at 9-14 with a 39.1% winning percentage. The 11th seeded Toronto Raptors, and the New York Knicks just beat them last night 136-130. So I watched a full game of theirs very recently. My question, with the offense and the team just being bad, is are you going to pick a direction with Siakam? This is a guy who's still playing at a high level. Are you going to extend Anunoby and add around him? Or are you going to move Siakam and retool? Decide. You're at that point where nothing you're doing is making it worth it to keep this core together the way it is. So either extend Anunoby and add more, get aggressive and add more, or if you think you're in too deep, then back out and tear things down. But pick one, right, Toronto?
Yeah, it's similar situation to Chicago, but they have Scotty Barnes ceiling and greatness, but it's not good enough. That's the thing to make it anywhere with the roster they currently have. Like, yes, it was worth trying it this year. I give Toronto that because we don't know how high Scotty Barnes' ceiling could have gotten or could get yet. But I think we know by now. I think it's been enough. That pairing is just not, he's not going to be good enough. I don't see Scotty Barnes getting to top 5. He might be able to get to top 10 someday, but I see top 15 player more likely. And in order for this roster to work, he'd need to be in the top 5 conversation, I think. But OG Anunoby's a guy you can make work on any roster, anytime, anywhere, as long as he's happy. And I've never heard anything that he's not. So Siakam, on the other hand, much different story. I think he's at his peak right now. You got to trade high. And so get rid of him. Try to get anything you can to build around Scotty Barnes and hopefully get some good picks back or a great pick back, whatever it takes. I mean, people love what Siakam brings. I mean, he offers a wide array of things. But the thing is, I think people don't realize how bad, like, bad of a 3-point shooter he has been. I mean, he's definitely gone backwards, but he's never been as good as people think at 3-point shooting. And once they figure that out, which it's kind of crazy that I'm even saying this because they, you got to be an idiot to not just look at the tape and look at the numbers a little bit, but I just think that's why people talk so highly of Siakam, is they think he can be a great 3-point shooter, but he's not. And I think that would detract from his value is what I'm getting at here. And tell me if I'm crazy by insinuating that or not, but that's my take on why I think Siakam value is still semi-high.
Hey, I think he provides a lot of value because there's lots of things he's good at. He is a good passer. He is a good rebounder. He is a good defender. He is a good scorer. He's not a good shooter. I also don't think he's not even like pretty good, not just definitely not good. But he's very good at a lot of other things, and that makes him this star level impact player that maybe not game in, game out because of the shooting inconsistency, but who can frequently bring a star impact to the table. And so with that said, um, I think that it's hard to say he's not kind of overlooked a little in Toronto, but I do think that uh I do think that if a team like Atlanta went and got him and Trey was spacing the floor for him, it would be way different than a Van Vliet or a Schroeder at the point guard position. So I think it kind of goes both ways there with that conversation. It sounds like you think they should move Siakam.
Immediately, yeah. I mean, as soon as they stopped winning, and I don't think that's going to turn around anytime. Like, Barnes is really good already, and I don't see him getting a ton better with this roster. Um, I think he needs more shooting around him yet. I think he just needs a different feel. I mean, it's hard to say. Maybe better passing big man than Jakob Poeltl. I mean, there's variety on this team, and I'm not sure what, like, I just think he needs better players around him, to be honest. Um, as simple as that sounds, sometimes it's not a complex issue, but I think there's been variety around Scotty Barnes.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's been good this season. But will we see uh the leap sustain over the course of the season from him in terms of the statistical output, the production that's there, because it's a lot to start. Um, so
I mean,
yeah,
he's definitely declined a little bit.
yeah, that was bound to happen. But if it can hold where it's at now, I think that's great. No, pretty early in the career. All right, well, Zach, you've got our next um question because with the 10th seed at 9-13, the first team winning over 40% of their games at 40.9%. the Atlanta Hawks. Your burning question for them, Zach, is
Where is AJ Griffin?
thank you.
That's my burning question.
Great question.
And Quinn Snyder was my guy.
He's
Don't
betrayed you.
think I'm torn, man. I'm torn. Is this Atlanta issue more on Quinn Snyder or is it more Trae Young? It's one of the two. It's one of the two. Because either I was overrating Quinn or I was overrating Trae. It's one of those things, and I can't figure out which one it is. I'm leaning towards Trae though, because Trae was doing this with a coach last year, a different coach.
Yeah.
And I don't think the roster is that bad. I think it's actually a pretty good roster. I do blame Quinn for AJ Griffin.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on there. I wish I had insight. Um, but man, would it be nice to know?
You'd pinpoint Trae though, it seems, if out
Yeah.
of those two.
Yeah. I knew, um, oh, geez. Who was the coach they had before McMillan?
Before McMillan. Oh man. I mean, three is a decent amount. Like Cat's been through, I think, four or
Lloyd
five.
Pierce, man. Lloyd
Well,
Pierce.
yes. He was terrible.
Lloyd Pierce. I knew he would be
God
getting
awful.
fired soon because Trae hated him and the team was going to choose Trae over him. Then it was McMillan. Now it's Snyder. You know what? If it gets to an impasse with Snyder, how do you pick Trae again? You know, you can fire the coach, but you probably got to move the star too and rebuild.
Yeah, the thing back to my original question though, with AJ Griffin, um, he's untapped potential. I think he's a great two-way player. He was trending very well last year. I think he's a guy, like I looked at him almost like an OG Anunoby, just a little different. Uh, but he just went to shreds after, like it seems like it's just a confidence thing to me. And this team is way too deep. Just not with great players, just good players. And he got the short end of the stick, which is wrong because he has some of the most untapped potential on the team that needs potential. So that's my thoughts.
I get it. I get it. I want to keep things moving, so let's pivot back up north to the Atlantic Division. I'm going to take the question here. We'll revisit Atlanta plenty this season as well. But at 12-10, the 54.5 winning percentage, the ninth seed on December 12th, the Brooklyn Nets. The burning question, Zach. I get to reframe this a little bit more positively for them. Uh, you don't have your own draft pick. So is it worth it to go out and try and maybe get a piece on a buy low, add someone to this roster and make a push for a playoff seed or then the higher end of the play in?
We've basically been talking about buy low players this entire pod so far. I mean, just reach out to every single one of those teams below you in the standings because it doesn't seem like any of those players are worth a ton besides Siakam. Um, go for it. I mean, seriously, if you don't have your pick this year, you got to try to win. I mean, Cam Thomas, Mikal Bridges, Nick Claxton, those guys are pieces for a long time, in my opinion. Cam Johnson, there you go. I mean, that's basically 4 out of your 5. If you could get one more piece, maybe you're on to something special, honestly.
Right.
Maybe that Pascal Siakam is that piece to make this team special. I think he could be. I really do. I think they have literally everything else that perfectly fits around a Pascal Siakam. It's not a team
Wow.
that's been mentioned with him.
Do
Um,
you think that the negotiations with Cam Thomas, a scoring guard who doesn't, excel in other areas and will want the same kind of pay grade as a Maxi or a Hero, which I understand. Um, do you think they move him any sort of extension? Is he the guy you cash in to go get a
I don't think his
Siakam?
value is very high. You're if you're gonna go out and get Siakam, it's because you think Cam Thomas is really good, and you're
What if
trading
you
picks. You're trading picks for Siakam and cap filler.
I'm spitballing. What if you do Cam Thomas and cap filler and fewer picks for Siakam? Give Toronto the style of player that they really need and don't have on that team, and then go buy low on Zach LaVine, and you have
Woo!
LaVine, McCall, and Siakam.
Okay. In that case, I mean, it's just a different path. Uh, if you like LaVine more than Cam Thomas's upside, that's the question. Which I'd rather have Cam Thomas at his contract than LaVine right now at his, personally. But if that's what it takes to get you Siakam, and then you get Siakam and LaVine, I think it's just a different way to get there. And yes, that's okay. It's the only way to get there if that's how you get Siakam. Sure, maybe that intrigues Zach LaVine a lot more too, but I don't know why Zach LaVine wouldn't be intrigued anyway as long as Mikal Bridges is there. He should be very intrigued to play next to him and Cam Johnson. I think they're like very good fits next to him. You look at what Booker did next to those guys, and I love the path either way, as if they get something like that to be conference title contenders. That's about it. I don't see them as championship contenders with either of those moves. But I mean, that's as far as Brooklyn's been in a long time. So why not? Other than that, I mean, Cam Thomas, I mean, his value, I don't think is that high until his 3-point percentage gets up.
We'll see. I think the percentage stays low because of the degree of difficulty. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Very
you kind of are fine with that if it is. Zach, let's keep it moving. You're going to ask the burning question here for a very fitting team to have a burning question for, because at 13-10 with a 56.5% winning percentage in the number 8 seed are the Miami Heat.
How good is Hami Hackis?
Very. Now.
As in,
No, don't overreact. Don't even say star. Don't even go make the
that's what I'm
conversation.
asking. How good do you think this guy really is?
Don't make the conversation weird. But he's a
Just say
good role
very good
player,
role player. Long
very good
time.
role player for a good team. I think he's a very decent to very solid role player for a good team right now. And I think
Starting role player or bench role player?
I think right now bench role player. I think going forward, starting role player for the rest of his career, someone who could start on good teams.
That's exactly how I'd put it, to be
He can
honest.
play.
I mean, I'm not willing to go any more than what you just said there. And it's very rare rookies impact winning like he does. He absolutely has. I mean, very quickly. I think Brandon Miller would be similar, just like a star level ish. I think he's a guy that would be impacting winning, and I think he was early on. Um, but these guys still need more. Maybe, I mean, maybe you think it's just as good as last year, and with a little luck, the Heat can get past the Bucks and the Celtics and the Sixers, but I still think they're missing a piece. Kyle Lowry has been better this year. Um, it's it's not enough for me. It's not enough. I know we got past the burning question, but do you want to talk trade anything here? I mean,
It sounds like you do. What do you do if you're them?
I get LaVine. Um, I don't love Siakam there. I don't love Siakam. I think they still need a little more shooting. Um, OG Anunoby or LaVine. That's enough to win for sure. I think they definitely a real true contender. They could easily win with one of those pieces. I don't know why they don't get it done. I would hate DeMar DeRozan there. That's one of the two teams he mentioned. He said them and the Knicks. Um, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see him and Jimmy
Nope.
Butler next to each other.
The Miami Heat, man. I like your idea of getting a scorer, but then with Hero, I don't know. So I don't know how you balance the shots. I don't know how you balance the guard minutes. We'll see how they go about that there. Let's keep it moving up
That's why you
this.
got Jaime Jaquez off the bench. You put Hero in the starting lineup. I mean, it obviously depends if you brought in OG or Levine, but regardless, they need more, and we both agree on that.
Absolutely.
There's
Well,
not a ton out there available.
no, that's the thing. I was gonna say, well, there's not a lot to choose from. So we'll see how that goes. Zach at 13-10, the same record as Miami, that 56.5% winning percentage, tied with them for the 7th seed. The Cleveland Cavaliers, the other team the New York Knicks played in the playoffs last year, the Heat and the Cavaliers, both with the same record. Cleveland, man, my burning question actually doesn't have much to do with their roster right now. And I know that that's like against the rules for me. I love to keep it X's and O's and not do storylines, but man, I don't know how you get a locker room to buy in on giving you 100% full effort when they don't know if their best player is coming back. What's the plan with Donovan Mitchell?
You think everything revolves around mid? Do you think that's why they've been middling this year and going backwards from last year's? Because
Yeah, I don't know
they're
that
all
they're like
concerned about.
yeah, I don't know that they're fired up to.
Man, I could see that. I could see that. I just don't. I've been trying not to think about that this year. I mean, it's hard to ignore it, but at the same time, I wanted to believe it was because Garland was missing games because their defense has been fine. It took a while to get back to being good again. They started winning more games here because their defense came around. It's their offense that still sucks. Uh, it's just not consistent. It's pretty isolation-esque. Doesn't look anywhere near last year. Assists are way down. Um, you got a good point. I mean, that could very well be the case. They're not in it.
I don't know,
But
man. What's the
here's
what's
the
the
other thing. I
situation?
thought their offense was higher than it was last year. It was like a top 15 offense, which still is way better. It's a bottom 5 right now offense in the league when you got this much Mitchell and Garland. Um, I don't know, man.
It's tough.
If you don't think you're gonna sign him, I would trade him. I mean, you don't want to lose him for nothing, right?
So that makes it so hard because it's like, how do you?
And he's the guy I'd get from Miami then if he becomes available. I mean, he's the guy for sure. I mean, same with Brooklyn, Cam Thomas. I mean, that's who I trade Cam Thomas for if I don't know. Big contract. That's
Hey, man. Yeah, it's definitely difficult.
those are the hardest decisions a GM
I
has to
if I'm
make.
Brooklyn, I'd Cam Thomas for Donovan Mitchell, man, and filler. That's speaking to me. And let's talk about it for a little because I think Donovan Mitchell might just sign with Brooklyn. So I think
Yeah.
if you're Brooklyn, it's safe to go get Donovan because he'd extend with you. Um, and then you don't have to pay Cam Thomas because Donovan is coming in and filling that role. That's, I guess, the sell. For Cleveland, you were losing Donovan anyway. Go get Cam Thomas, a young version of Donovan who's nowhere near as good as Donovan, but who actually might stick around and want to play for you. So,
Yep.
you got to pay him, but that's a factor there too. I like that idea. I like a Mitchell for Cam Thomas swap. I think it's maybe the first weird trade idea we floated on this in season version of all things NBA that I actually like really want to see happen.
Oh, you sit down and make trades. I'll give you plenty, baby. Um,
Not with the monstrosity you posted the Knicks were involved in the other day. Anyway, before we sidebar, let's talk about those New York Knicks at 13-9 with a 59.1 winning percentage and in the Eastern Conference's 6th seed with sole possession of it. The New York Knickerbockers, Zach, your burning question.
I would love to give this one to you, but my question is, what is their actual ceiling? I mean, we've talked about this plenty, but like, why, or maybe it's why are they okay with this ceiling? You know, Which one do you like
I
better?
think they've got all their picks, man, and they've got all their young players, all their picks. They've got surplus picks. They've got Brunson on a steal of a contract. They've got Randall making top 50 player money. I think they're happy with where they're at because everyone knows that next step is yet to come, and they're just allowing their young players to grow and develop so that when the time comes to have to trade some of them, they have as much value as they could possibly have.
So are you happy with where Emmanuel Quickly is? Because that was a big talking point for a long time this offseason is what's going to happen when you said he was going to get more playing time. He has, but still not to where you thought he'd be. And
Not, he's down in minutes per game a little, I think, recently. So that's not
really recently, but for the
fantastic.
year he is. Oh,
Not,
you're wow, he's down on the year. I thought
yeah,
he
no, the
okay.
Thibodeau has not shown respect to him this year.
Mm.
Straight up.
To
Hard is
me,
the sixth
I didn't
man.
realize he got to 28 last year. I forgot that.
Hard is the sixth man on this team. He's the first sub every game.
So I think Dante DiVincenzo has been getting way too much run.
I mean, he just got put in the starting lineup.
Yeah, but I mean, he's averaging 20 minutes for the year.
Oh well, look at those last couple games. It's got to be like what, like 24? I'm not sure exactly.
I just think he's limiting their ceiling, regardless of how you feel about him as a player.
Fills his
I'd
role
rather
well.
those. Yes, I'm not disagreeing with that. I just think the ceiling's coming from guys like Quickly and Quentin Grimes, and that's about it.
Quickly
That we
was out
don't
against
have.
Toronto last night. Grimes was fantastic off the bench. He was great. DiVincenzo was really good, and he fits his role with that starting lineup, especially because of what that role entails, not getting a lot of creativity with the ball in hand. I like DiVincenzo in that role, and Grimes getting to be the more creative one off the bench. He's the better finisher of the two, so that's where he can attack those baseline drives a little bit more off the bench. I like it, man. I like what they're doing, and I like giving Grimes the bench role and the bench usage.
Here's a hot take. There's not a player available right now that really increases this Knicks ceiling. So that
Correct.
speaks more to the Knicks front office. I mean, whether it's Siakam or OG or Zach LaVine, the best names available right now, none of those guys raise this team's ceiling like much higher than it is.
OG I could see because he's a big wing defender, and that's not something they've had. But
It goes to a couple extra games in the playoffs, whatever you think their ceiling is right now, which mine is a second round ceiling. Um, whether you think they can win 2 games in the second round, 4 games in the second round, make the conference finals with this team, I think Zach LaVine or OG only adds 1 or 2 to that.
I think Anunoby could get them to the conference finals.
Yeah, see, I'm
losing in the conference finals,
I think
but
he could get them to maybe
depending on
like
how the
game
bracket shakes
7
out,
of the second round.
depending on how the bracket shakes out, I can definitely see Anunoby helping them reach the conference finals.
Yeah, that's just me saying they're going to play for sure Boston or
Right.
Milwaukee in that
I
second
get it.
round. So,
Well, listen, if your burning question is about the ceiling, I would say the ceiling right now is the conference finals. So long as it's understood that if the playoffs shake out in a way where they've got to play Orlando and Indiana in the first 2 rounds, like they're going to make the conference finals. If they have to play Boston, Philadelphia, or Milwaukee in round 2 or round 1, they might not make it out of that round, So it all depends on how the
yep.
bracket shakes out with the Knicks. That's why I think it's a fair time to move on to another team who I think will be more at the mercy of the bracket than anyone else, maybe in the top 5 besides the Magic. The Indiana Pacers, 13-8, 61.9% of their games won thus far. They've got the 5 seed. Zach, my burning question for the Pacers is, can this team win a series?
Ooh, that's a great question. That's That's a fair one. And right now, gun in my head, the answer is no.
Right? I
Uh,
agree, and that's
like
really
an
tough.
emphatic no. The
Yep,
only
yep, yep,
team,
yep, yep.
I mean, if Orlando stays as the 2 seed and they somehow get Orlando in the first round, which obviously they don't match up now because Orlando's 2, but right now, out of the top 8 teams, Orlando's the only team I could see the Pacers beating. That's it. So it'd have to get really lucky. I take that back. You're not gonna like this. I think they could beat the Knicks too. But I don't see them playing the Knicks in the first round. I just don't. I mean, 4 in the 5 is that's how it happened. So I'll go Knicks and Orlando are the only 2 teams I could see them beating in the first round, unless Atlanta gets on their high horse or Miami somehow gets up there. But no, my answer is the way things are right now and the way I think things are gonna turn out. I think Orlando drops.
Right.
So no. What about you?
I think Orlando drops. I think Indiana may not drop, but they're not going to be a team that is scaring you too much in the playoffs. They're the kind of team that can be young and excel in the regular season with their effort. And that just in the playoffs, you make them play in the half court. It's going to get a little more difficult for them and for Halliburton. And I do just think that, every team in the top 8 could beat the Pacers in a playoff series, except maybe Orlando. I could see that being a blast of a playoff series, Orlando and Indiana, just because they're both, to me, really solid teams that are, like, in theory 5, 6, or 7 seeds, but that have earned their way up with their effort and treating every game like it's the Super Bowl, which I love. So that's where I'm at. Um, is that it for you on those guys?
Yep.
Yeah, let's go up to Philadelphia. 15-7, 68.2% winning percentage. And the 4 seed, the Philadelphia 76ers. Zach, your burning question?
I could go so many different ways with this.
For real.
But I'm gonna choose the other one can be a quick hitter. So I'm gonna go off the bat. What sort of move do you think they make if they make a move? Or do you not think they make a move?
You gotta bench, just shore up the bench a little. If you can just go get a high value reserve, someone to go out there with Pat Bev and play their butt off.
Like a Caruso.
Yeah, that would be fantastic for them. That would
But
be fantastic for them, man.
that makes them a real contender, or are they already in your eyes?
I think that makes them a real I think that gives them the depth to be a real contender.
Wow. That's crazy to me because I would think if that's your opinion, I think you would think they're basically a real contender now, which
No, Caruso's that good.
okay. I love
And
it. I
having
mean, I
depth
just don't
matters that much at that level. That caliber, your team's that good.
they're probably I think their depth is what's important to them right now, what separates them. Um, I like the way it's really shoring up with Marcus Morris and Covington
And
getting
if you
more
have
play.
Melton and Caruso, you're wreaking havoc. Do it.
Yeah, this team, so they were like bottom 10 defense for the first 10 games or whatever. Now over the last 10 games, I mean, they're top 5 defense, and now they'll finish. I mean, they're 15 as the whole season's accumulated right now, and I think they'll finish closer to top 5 defense the way things are trending, which is pretty awesome progression. Last one on these guys, Maxey. Where does he stack up to you? Taking him over Halliburton, taking him over
Yes.
Brunson.
No. Um
Wow. So Brunson 1, Maxey.
Brunson's one of the best shooters in the NBA this season. Um and he's just been lights out from 3, and he's got that volume up too. So Brunson's been scary in that regard, and to me he's been just slightly above Halliburton and Maxey, to me, I'd take the edge over Halliburton because stylistically, I'm always going to prefer a guy like Maxey who can go get a bucket on his own.
Mm.
Halliburton uses screens more intelligently than anyone else and makes defenders come and play him on the floater so he can get the lob. Halliburton is a wizard of the offensive angles. I think that's what he's so great at when he drives, using teammates and playing passing lane angles. He's so cerebral and smart, but the end of the day, the playoff environment, the game slows down, the court shrinks. You can't turn the ball over. Every bucket matters more. I'm going to take a guy like Maxey who can just go get me buckets, possession in, possession out. And that's just a personal stylistic thing. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I think that's the most maturely and reasonably I've discussed Tyrese Halliburton in a long time.
It was.
But he deserves it. And I gotta say, Garland is really good. Maxey's really good. Halliburton's really good. The East, Brunson's really good. LaMelo's
Maxi
really
or
good.
Mitchell?
Mitchell right now. Maxey up in the future. And Trae Young is really good. Eastern Conference point guards or lead guards. They're in a great spot.
I agree with everything you just said. The one thing I'd say is starting a team from scratch. I don't know who's on the rest of the team. I'm taking Halliburton over those guys as a floor raiser, but as a ceiling raiser and a player overall, I'm taking Maxey just because of what I've seen in the playoffs. Mitchell slightly above him, but it's very close. It's getting closer by the minute. Just Mitchell's a little better playmaker yet. I think at their absolute peak, Mitchell has them on a more consistent basis yet, but Maxey's working towards there very quickly. But yeah, for Joel Embiid, I'm taking Maxey over everybody.
Love it. Well, let's talk about a different pairing of stars. You go over to Milwaukee, and it's Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo leading the 3 seed Milwaukee Bucks, 16-7, the 69.6% winning percentage. The burning question for me for the Milwaukee Bucks is, are you better than the Celtics? That to me is everything in the East this year. Are you better than the Celtics? And if you're the Celtics, it's are you better than the Bucks? I think these two teams are looking right at each other, old school Western standoff style. I really think these are the top two dogs, and I'm very curious to see how they stack up over the course of their regular season matchups, and then hopefully we get a playoff matchup between these two Eastern Conference heavyweights. If you're the Bucks, are you better than the Celtics? Can you be by the end of the season?
Absolutely not right now. The Celtics are way more polished and just a well-oiled machine. I mean, they're playing within each other and through each other. The Bucks are just a one-man isolation team right now. I mean, it's not pretty basketball, but slowly getting better by the game. There's just talent wins. They're just a deep team, and they're getting enough great performances out of their top guys to win as many games as they are. And that's kind of, I mean, the Bucks has never been a pretty play style as long as Giannis has been there. It's just been dominant, and it's just been greatness. And so
Yeah,
that's how they're going to win again, probably. I don't necessarily see Adrian Griffin being some Phil Jackson-esque guru or anything that's going to make this thing look seamless. So,
definitely not, especially with the quotes that have been coming out.
what's the most gnarly quote you've heard?
Oh my God, I can't even. There was the one that I can't remember, and now it's because it's the only one I can think of. But it was in an athletic piece, and it just made me think to myself, like, this guy might not know what he's doing right now. Um, he against the Knicks, I mean, he tried to have Brook Lopez play super aggressively. He's I don't know,
I
like,
don't like him right now. I definitely don't. I just think, again, the talent is overtaking, and guys are playing good enough, and they're getting enough. Chris Middleton's getting better by the game, which is great to see. Not nearly at the rate Kawhi is or anything like that. Kawhi is basically very close to being fully back to a top 5 player in the
yeah.
league, which is so damn cool to see. After being so worried about this guy the first 10 games.
I
But
told you
like,
he's a dog.
yeah, no, I mean, I didn't doubt him ever. I didn't doubt him. I just was a little worried.
Why?
But Chris Middleton, though, to get back to his all-star form, and
Yep.
it's no Kawhi level, but just to get back to where he once was, seems a little far-fetched and crazy. But I mean, it's slowly trying. Well, that's all I can say. He's trying.
Yeah, facts.
Um, with
Well,
that said,
I was gonna say, let's pivot one more up in the standings. Zach, your final burning question is for a team that's also 16-7, also has a 69.6 winning percentage, and tied for the 2 seed with the Milwaukee Bucks is the Orlando Magic on a 2-game winning streak. They're 8-2 in their last 10. What's your burning cue?
Why should they trade for Anthony Simons?
Wow. Okay. Interesting. I like that. Can they send Markel? Is that like a salary thing that would work? I don't know.
I think
Um,
he's the piece that gets them into like conference finals, like for sure contention really quickly. Um, I just think he's the
wow,
scoring punch
that's a
shooting that they
big
need.
take. That's a tall ask
Because
of him.
I don't think I think they're struggling to get out of no matter. Like I say, the Timberwolves in the same light. I really do. Like they can win the what? I don't think the Magic can win the East. Like I think the Timberwolves can, but like similar. No matter where they finish, I think they're gonna struggle in the playoffs. And like Timberwolves definitely way higher than the Magic, but just
Well, I
similar
agree that
takes.
for Orlando, a calming half court presence at guard would be really good for them, but I don't know that I love the take that Simons would get them to the conference finals. I'll meet you in the middle. I'll say Simons makes them.
I didn't say he will get them there. I think he'll give them potential to get there, which
Okay.
I think he.
Oh, well, no, still don't. I'm still not there.
You
But
don't think
with
he's that big of an upgrade?
no, but he can be one of
Okay.
several pieces that gets them there for sure. And I love your thought. I've loved that idea since last summer, especially with the appearance of Scoot Henderson, who's kind of over his last 4 games breaking out of that shell finally a little bit. Rookie guards always give him time. We never wrote Scoot off on this podcast, never refused to, and it's because rookie guards need their time. So
Best
now
game of his career last night.
now Scoot's looking good. Exactly. We'll see how it
Chauncey still benches him.
exactly. We'll see how it goes over there in Portland and in Orlando. I think maybe Emmanuel Quickly and RFA, someone they've been linked to that they should also, I think they should pursue. He's really good on both ends of the floor. He'd be a fantastic fit with Franz and Paolo, a very scary fit
I
for
like
the
that.
rest of the league. And Quickly and Suggs as a defensive backcourt would wreak havoc the way that Lonzo and Caruso did in Chicago when they were both healthy and playing together. So I
You're
would
way
watch out
higher
for
on
that.
Quickly's defense than me.
Just check the stats. He's a top guy every year in perimeter defense, and even his interior defense is really good, especially for a guard. Quickly's just that guy. But our final team, a team that Emmanuel Quickly has danced all over the TD Garden on. But aside from that, no, it's 16-5, the best team in the Eastern Conference, the number one top dog, a 76.2% winning percentage, the number one seeded Boston Celtics. And my burning question for them is one that I think they should be honored to have asked to them, which is this roster ready to contend, or is there a move you need to make before the deadline? Is the roster good to go or not for the finals? Let's talk.
So I've always said they're the number 2 team in the league, the number 2 contender, and I said there's only been 3 true contenders until I see Phoenix or the Clippers, and the Lakers come closer to playoff time. So those 3 teams I still stand pat on are the Nuggets, Celtics, and Bucks. I don't think they need to make a move to win. I think it would definitely make it way more likely, and it'd be very beneficial because I don't think their bench is good, and that's can be an issue. Say one of their starters goes down. If anybody but Tatum goes down, they can still win. Okay, I really believe that. But if Tatum goes down, they can't win regardless. But if one of those guys go down, they definitely need a bench. Like they absolutely need a bench. And the chances are 4 players, 5 if you want to count Derek White, stay healthy the whole year. Not great. So a little boost on the bench would definitely go a long ways. I mean, Pritchard, Hauser have both been pretty damn good. Horford still can pick his spots, and so they have 3 guys off the bench. Okay, it's that really 8th spot. I mean, some people kind of like Luke Cornett a little bit. They might have it on the team in Svi Mikhailov if they actually played the dude, but maybe not. It's looking like it's not because they're never going to play him. So I would like one more piece. It doesn't need to be a big piece. Their bench has been better than I thought.
Yeah, one more piece. And I agree. Shore up the bench bigs, shore up the front, the backup front
Big,
court.
yeah.
Just we've talked about this on this show before. Get some backup front court members that you think you're confident can help you contribute. Whether it's a super buy low, go get Kelly Olynyk and help him return to Boston. Just go add someone, man. I'll say Kelly Olynyk will be my suggestion for today's pod. Zach, that's it for the Eastern Conference. It was a blast running through these teams with you.
We ran it. That was good. A lot of
Love
fun,
it.
man.
Well, if you enjoyed this, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, or subscribe or like the podcast on Spotify. We thank you for rocking with us, and we hope you stay tuned here on all things NBA from A to Z. I'm Chris Persianen for Zach Noble, and for our co-host Albert Nguyen, signing off. See you next time.